I will like to first give you a brief outline that what we did, so uh, for so many classes which we did. I just want to give a brief outlook of that, and then what I wanted that I wanted to give you a lecture on Bangladesh. That's what actually we were supposed to begin, and that's where we stopped. So if you have any question, can you ask right now?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's me, Jennifer. For me, it is the case that especially the material we have already dealt with is mostly in Delhi, and I'm in Germany right now. So
Okay.
my question would be especially whether we can get the materials online in some way.
That we will definitely try, and actually, I think we will request Neeraj to uh, mm, scan and then upload. That will be, the case. Anyone else would like to come? Mm, I know, many of the friends, they are not with us, but I think what we will do that we will tape this and we will put, and they can access as and when they want, and yet there will be definitely, they will not be able to join us in that way. So we are sorry, but with a very defensive note, I'm starting that this is a really unprecedented time, and then we all know that people are suffering, but even then uh, we have to engage so that these things can be put across, at least that we are doing something. Otherwise, uh, we have not done anything since March. We thought that it will open and we will get 6 weeks and we can do our courses within 6 weeks. But many of the GSPNs, they have gone and they are doing their uh, what they have to do field work, or they have internship. They are doing internship. Some people are doing job. So we have to actually justify that we have done this course. Hmm? So to begin with, one, that we started this course by defining the region itself, how South Asia was perceived, and region and regionalism as an approach to understand the South Asia. That was one we think we started, and we said that region, South Asia, emerges from a approach in the academics that is regionalism. And regionalism is an approach to understand and analyze the study of interrelated relationship of geographical regions. And these geographical regions were uh, conceptualized on four bases: historical basis, cultural basis, economic basis, and fourth was their foreign affairs. Uh, but these are interrelated units, and that's where actually on that basis, after the Second World War, if you remember Gulbenkian Commission reports that how after the Second World War, the world was divided in two superpowers, and one superpower wanted to understand region. And then the world was divided into 15 regions: North America, Latin America, West Europe, East Europe. These are four regions there, and then five Africas: East, West, North, South, and Central. Nine. 10th was Russia. And then you come to Asia: Middle East Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Southwest Pacific, that is one, and last, South Asia. This is the region that we try to conceptualize. And this, of course, Spiegel, uh, Spiegel and Cantroni, that was the book which we took this actually. We also tried to argue that Heidelberg Center in Germany, it tries to divide on the basis of, map of the world and the line which is latitudinally dividing the regions on that basis. We do. We actually gave you one of the articles by Uman, Uman, where we thought that you can, this changing modes of conceptualizing the world, changing modes of conceptualizing the world, implications for social research. Now, in this, we tried to argue that the world was conceived through colonial powers. One was, tradition and modern. That was one way the world was conceptualized. Old and new was another way to the world conceptualized. And after the World War, the superpowers tried to divide the world into first world, second world, and third world. That is the way actually. And South Asia falls in that. Now, this is the way we try to conceptualize the South Asia region. Now, within this, we try to argue that there are 8 countries, and we try to see that, how these countries have been uh, brought into the Asia, the South Asia, and these 8 countries we all know, starting from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that is one group, and then we have Nepal and Bhutan, then we have Sri Lanka, and then Maldives. So this is the way actually we tried to conceptualize further. We started with conceptual note of that sociologically how we can look or how we can understand this region sociologically, and therefore we try to argue that we will take a evolutionary historical approach, how this whole region has evolved over the years. Because if we take that evolutionary and historical conceptualization, then and then only we can trace that how South Asia as a region diversifies. We know that India was one till 1947, and then emerged Pakistan, and from Pakistan emerged Bangladesh. So how their histories are united. There was no line of control between Nepal and India. There were, of course, relationships of different types with Bhutan. Maldives is another story where, as a country from Sultanate, it starts emerging as a nation. So I think we can look into each country through a evolutionary and historical perspective. That is the way to understand. And that's where we try to understand India through 12 epochs, 12 evolutionary epochs in the making of Indian society. If you remember, starting from the first epoch was Indus Valley civilization, the second Vedic, the third the protest religions, Buddhism and Jainism, fourth advent of Islam, fifth we have Bhakti movements of the saints, sixth is of course emergence of Sikhism, seventh advent of Europeans and Christianity, eighth we have independence movement, ninth partition, 10th a republic evolved with the constitution. India becomes a republic with the constitution. And 11th, modernization through planned development. And last but not the least is globalization. This is the way we try to understand. Now, within this, we try to understand that how we took modernity, we took two articles of modernity, that how we can understand modernity from South Asian perspective. And we also try to do a cultural perspective on modernity and cultural perspective of modernity by Bhargava, Uman's concept of multiple modernity, the first world modernity, the second world modernity, and the third world modernity. The first world modernity came out of industrial revolution. The second world modernity came out of ideological revolution. And third world modernity came out again, revolution against colonialism. Now from here, we moved on that how democracy and nationalism started emerging in this region. And nationalism, we tried to do that how in India, how nationalism was conceptualized. And therefore, nationalism in South Asia becomes an emancipatory ideology. Why? Because it gives strength to fight with the colonialists. And that's where we try to argue that nationalism emerged against a colonial power. It did not emerge out of its own, but against fighting the colonial power. For the subalterns, nationalism becomes a very, very important. The scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, the Adivasis, all becomes women, all become very important because with the nationalism, we find that there is a document called Constitution, and Constitution gives rights to the marginalized and excluded categories, and that empowers them because there are legitimate rights to be fought. That's where, notion of secularism, the South Asian concept of secularism, that in Western part, how nationalism has, has emerged, and how now in Western societies, the statists would say that actually it is a very, very reductionist approach in Western society. One language, one region, and one nation. That was the conceptualization. But India, it is not the case. There are multiple religions and there are multiple language, and we are trying to have one nation. And therefore, language and territory becomes a very important aspect of a nation. And that's why Uman argues that India is not a nation. It is conglomerations of many nations, because there are language and there is territory. That is one. Democracy, modernity now moves from nationalism and constitutionalism to secularism. Now, secularism here, we try to argue that in secularism, in India, there's a very different case altogether, because the state has intervened in many cases to help the collectivity to gain their rights, because like scheduled castes were not allowed to enter into temple, but there is a law. So law intervenes in the private phenomena also. But in Western society, secularism means that in state apparatus, law will not intervene at all. And that's what the secularism in India becomes a very different ball game. Now, having said this, we also tried to look into the partition of India and how nation as a category started. We did that article by Christopher Zeffiret, Nationality Without Nation. And in that, we tried to look into two types of definitions. One was Marcel Mauss's definition that nation emerges out of sentimentality, we-feeling. And on the other hand, Gallner contests that idea that no nation emerges out of objective needs of people. When people feel excluded, they start mobilizing, and when they start mobilizing, they put primordial markers for mobilization, and religion is one of the markers. So this contestation led to partition of the country, and part and in South Asia, a new nation starts emerging, and that is Pakistan. Now, the case of Bangladesh is also proved by Christopher Zefflet in his article that look why nation emerges from the objective reality of needs of the people. And that's where we find that East Pakistan was, people of the East Pakistan, they were deprived of the political power, sharing the political power, sharing of the economic power, and even bureaucratic power. They were denied the access to bureaucracy, polity, economy. And it is said that they were suffering from an apartheid, internal apartheid, and that's why they started revolting. Even their language and culture was relegated to periphery. Urdu became national language, though it was spoken by very few people. Now, that is why Christopher argues that, uh, nations emerge from a very different vantage point, and that is objective realities of the people start demanding a separate nation. That's where actually I think we brought some aspects that how Pakistan started with democracy and became dictatorship, and democracy and dictatorship have oscillated. That proves the point that people in South Asia do not like dictatorship, as people would say that. No, they are actually also, booting out dictatorship. And we also tried to do a article that what are the conditions of modernization of Pakistan. Uh, so from there, actually, we were trying to move to Bangladesh. Now, for Bangladesh, there can be number of vantage point to understand Bangladesh. At least, I can say that, four very important vantage points can be taken to understand Bangladesh. The first and the foremost, we can understand Bangladeshi society through different vantage points. That is when we take a evolutionary approach. And it is here then we can look into 10 interdependent and interconnected epochs in the making of Bangladesh. Now, I am talking about a 48 years history from 1971 December, and actually we are in 2020. So you can, start with this in 10 epochs. I will come to that. That is one very important vantage point. The second approach to understand Bangladesh can be via few political and dominant personalities. There were some dominant personalities, and they have treated different parts, starting from, a democracy, a military commander, and then the democracy again thriving. Okay. So there can be another vantage point. The third vantage point can be diversity in Bangladesh. So if we look into, when I think I collected my data, it was 112 million people. Now in 112 people, 12.6% were Hindu at that time. And this number has been decreasing, as they say. Why? Because people are migrating towards India, and it is easy to migrate to India because there is this, that, the linguistic similarity and ethnic similarity, and that's why people can come, and they can come and stay without being traced. There's a population 0.3% to 4% Buddhist population in Bangladesh. There are Chakmas as tribal, And of course, there is a very problematic category of Biharis is speaking Urdu. They don't speak Bangla, they speak Urdu. And they are still considered as Pakistanis, outsiders. So there is an ethnic strife there. So this is another vantage point we can understand. Uh, After that, we can look into the fourth vantage point can be that the Constitution of Bangladesh was promulgated in 1972, and after that, a democratic republic has started emerging. But gradually, this democratic republic has drifted towards, uh, you know, not remaining secular. Rather, it is becoming more Islamist in nature. And the constitution was amended in 1977, and the word secularism was replaced by absolute trust and faith in Almighty Allah. This was the phrase which was introduced: absolute trust and faith in Almighty Allah. This is Article 12 of uh, Bangladeshi Constitution. Now, the religious majoritarianism was further cemented when the constitution was further amended in 1988. And now this for declaring Islam as the state religion. This is eighth constitutional amendment. Eighth constitutional amendment when this is done. So we can, look into these, approaches. So we have 10 integrated approaches. We have through dominant personalities. We have through diversity, and also we can look into the the development of modern constitutional republic. Now, the fifth vantage point can be Bangladesh moved from a foreign aid economy to the process of globalization. That can be, another perspective. Okay. I think, this meeting will get over by, hmm, can anybody tell me what time it will get over?
There is no.
So
Is it giving you? Huh?
so it'll be only visible to you
It's
because
not
you
visible
No,
here
it's not.
actually.
on.
If it gets over, how much time you have with you so I could arrange another one just like this? Or do you have another class with you? Hmm?
We can have one more session of 40 minutes with you.
I think all you have to come again with the same ID. I think, if I will arrange that, or I have to send you. Hmm. I don't know exactly, but it is
But
not
there
telling
is no
me
warning
that.
that has shown yet that has come. I think
Yeah,
40 minutes.
yes, it is good.
Yeah.
So it is already 40. So if we can run through very easy, the history I was talking about, the 10 interrelated epochs. I think you can get it from any book, but actually this is my own reading, and I've collected data, and then I started evolving this. So you will not get the I think in that sense, but I think we can definitely evolve. So if we take the history, from where to begin? The 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 democracy, or the parliamentary democracy, the history of Bangladesh begins. The first epoch can be from 1971 to 1975, and here the dominant personality is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, considered to be father of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and his party, dominant political party, was Awami League, AWAMI, Awami League. Okay, it was, of course, it was, in 1949 it was established, and then it was retested. Now, this in this epoch, what is important to note was a new constitution was promulgated in 1972, and this epoch ended in a civilian coup. And it is here that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was, slain, and democratic leader was basically murdered. Now, second epoch, it starts from 1975 and goes till 1981. Now, in this, the dominant figure, of course, actually is the military assistant of the Mujibur Rahman, and it is here Ziaur Rahman, 1975 to 1981. That is Ziaur Rahman starts actually emerging as, and he forms Bangladesh National Party. Ziaur Rahman creates another political party. Now see, the diversification of the politics starts. Just a pause, that the first epoch can be actually, divided from 1971 to 1975, and from 1975 a new, a new era, you can keep it till 1981. So that, I think, the first epoch can be divided into two parts. One is 1971 to 1975, and the second epoch within that is 1975 to 1981. Okay. It is in this actually that assassination of Mujibur Rahman takes place, 1975 to 81. Now, Ziaur Rahman, that is the second epoch I was telling. You can tell it that that is the third epoch rather than second epoch, because we divided the first epoch into two. The third epoch, military autonomy, you can say a military autonomous leader, Ziaur Rahman, comes to power, and of course he creates a political party, that is Bangladesh National Party. But this, is very short-lived, and in 1982 there is another military autocracy which emerges, and it is here that H.M. Irshad, General H.M. Irshad, he starts, and he starts his own political party. That is Jatiyo Party, Jatiyon, Jatiyo Party. Now, what happens that he enters into lot of corruption. There's people's pressure, and he is forced to resign. That's where the fourth epoch ends. The fifth epoch is for the first time, and this is the military autocracy. The fourth epoch was from 1982 to 1990. That, I think, is the 8-year period that is military autocracy remained in Bangladesh. Now, for the first time, democracy is trying to return from 1991 to 1996. Return of parliamentary democracy. This is the fifth epoch, and the dominant political personality is Khalida Zia. Khalida Zia, a woman, and that too in a country which is considered to be dominated by Muslim. A woman comes to power, 1991, in democratic lines. Now, Bangladesh National Party is the dominant party, and the figure is this. Now, after this, 91 to 95, this is the parliamentary democracy. But in 96, she is defeated. She is defeated, and another episode of political democracy begins. That is sixth epoch, 1996 to 2001. 1996 to 2001. Dominant political figure is Sheikh Hasina, and dominant political party is Awami League. You know, Awami League was formed and established by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. There are 6 minutes remaining to this session. Now, in this, if you see now, there is crystallization of democracy for both the terms. 5 years with Khalida Zia, 1991 to 1996, and 1996 to 2001. That means democracy has come to stay. Now, the seventh, again, parliamentary democracy. Khalida Zia comes again to power, and Bangladesh National Party. Now, what I'm trying to argue that out of 48 years of Bangladesh history, 17 years was military autocracy, but that was booted out, and parliamentary democracy has come to stay. And it is here that we see two women, Khalida Zia and Sheikh Hasina Wajid. Sheikh Hasina is daughter of Mujibur Rahman, and Khalida Zia is wife of General Shah. So we can see that women are basically trying to lead. Now 2007 is a small gap in which there is an interim government, and this interim government comes, there was a settlement, there was a clause in the constitution that if an election has to take place, the government has to resign, and there has to be an interim government under whose actually observation elections will take place. So 2007, an interim government was formed, and it is military-backed government. But what happens? They were supposed to conduct election within 1 year, but they extended a little bit more. And therefore, after 2006, the parliamentary election took place in 2008. Therefore, this is the eighth epoch in the making of Bangladeshi society. Parliamentary democracy starts taking place again in 2008 to 2014. Dominant political figure is here the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's daughter, Sheikh Hasina Wajid, leader of Awami League. And it is here that, people have a lot of allegations that look, the elections were bungled, and there were observations from US, but nothing doing, there were 5 years of transfers of power in democracy. Ninth epoch comes parliamentary democracy, again, 2014 to 2018. Now, this is important. Why? Because for the first time, Bangladesh has a election under the supervision of Election Commission. Now, the clause that a election will only take place under the supervision of interim government was removed by Sheikh Hasina Wajid and Election Commission. And what were the words of Sheikh Hasina Wajid? He said that ripe democracies have election commission under whose suzerainty we have elections. Democracies cannot have these types of elections under the supervisory government, interim governments. No, we are a ripening democracy, and therefore we have elections. So it is very important that we note these small little developments toward democracy. Now we are, of course, in 10th epoch, 2018 until date, in which elections were held in Bangladesh on 30th of December 2018. And, again, Sheikh Hasina Wajid had a line. Now, what we can infer from this? One, democracy has come to stay in Bangladesh. Parliamentary democracy with parliamentary election and peaceful transference of power from one government to another is stay. Rest of the institutions we can look into. This is, one of the very important. There is only 1 minute left, so I will come again to you when this is over. So till now, if you have something to reflect upon, you can definitely look. Hmm. Can you understand me? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But I do have a doubt which I'll ask later, like in the next session.
Later. Okay. Fine. But I think, am I audible and I is okay actually?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So we will come back again. I think 1 minute is left. Anyone else would like